We are happy to see you guys. We're so grateful that you're here. And we will, we wanted to first introduce ourselves a little bit for those of you who have not met us before, who have not spent time with us before. This is Elevation Mindset, and my name is Suzanne Buchanan. And we are here. I am just one half of a team. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself and say hi?
Absolutely. Yes, my name is Michael Danklas, and the Elevation Mindset is a summit that we've been putting on for the last year. So we kind of came together at the end of 2020, and with as much as what was going on, we wanted to have some of these deeper conversations about areas that we can elevate our lives. And we were able to do one summit every single month last year on things like boundaries and drive and game and vision. And we're now looking to step things up for 2022.
Absolutely. You know, we really designed our conversations last year almost like in an arc of personal development of what are the basics you need. We talked about vision, we talked about habits, you know, we talked about things that are your building blocks. And this year we decided to, you know, there's nothing wrong with everything we did last year. It's foundational. But this year we wanted to challenge ourselves and each other to really step up and go a step further, go a step deeper. We think that you're ready for it. We think that we're ready for it. And we're really grateful for you to join us on this journey. So today, you know, just a little bit about our backgrounds. Michael, you know, do you want to talk about your background and what brought you here?
Absolutely. So for me, I've actually come from IT, programming, sales, support, and actually really kind of got engrossed in that, though there was something missing and something more that I wanted to be doing, more contribution that I wanted to do to the world. So with that, I did start a life coaching practice about almost 3 years now. And that has really kind of been me sharing the personal growth that I've been on, as well as collaborating with other people so that we can really learn to turn people's spirit on, turn their insight on, turn their curiosity on. And this was a way for me to kind of give back to the community in a more broad scale. And Suzanne kind of, we both worked on a similar project like this and found that it just wasn't the right vibe. It wasn't the right feeling. And we kind of stepped away from that, though there was this connection between Suzanne and I on like our perspective on this, focusing on deep conversations of our own journey, which is really kind of what I wanted to bring, is that it's not just something that's in the book. It's something that is the wisdom that comes from practicing. And we wanted to come from that perspective rather than so many places is here's 3 steps to make your life better, to make that 7-figure income, or, you know, this is the punch list can be helpful, but we wanted to have a much deeper conversation. And that's where I really wanted to go and really start connecting with my story and my journey and as a conversation.
Perfectly said. You know, guys, if you want 3 steps to XYZ, you're going to have to go somewhere else, because the real question that we ask here every month is, how are you showing up? And is this who you want to be? How are you showing up in these different areas? And what are the steps, you know, you're going to take if you're not where you need to be? How can we get there together? So thank you for joining us. As Michael said, his background is in service, though, and his personal growth journey is phenomenal. It's admirable. And he's somebody that when I connected with him, I knew this is someone who I not only wanted to be in alignment with, but felt great spending time with him and sharing his company. For me, my background is in communications. I've always connected people to messaging, whether it's corporate advertising, working as a mediator for the United States Department of Justice, working on global conflict to help people come together to have conversations that matter. Whether it's, you know, it doesn't really matter where you come from. What matters is how you show up and where you want to go. And so as we get into our topic today of grace, we're going to really just talk about why we chose the subject, what aspect of grace we're even talking about that makes this relevant in our lives, and how we can leverage it for our personal growth and development. Or it may be how it's impacted us along the way. So thank you for joining us. And I really wanted us to start off with just saying, you know, what do you think of when it comes to grace? Guys, in the chat box, or if you want to even pop out live, we're good with that. What do you think of when it comes to grace? What does that mean to you?
Well, considering Michael just unmuted me, I guess you want to share you want me to share my story. So when I was in eighth grade graduation, there was the speaker for the graduation wrote a poem with couplets for all of the kids. And one of the lines describing me was, "Her style and grace was something quite rare." And I had no style, and I thought I was clumsy. At that time, I had associated grace with the way you carried yourself. I mean, I'd taken ballet classes. So to me, grace was the physical. So I didn't understand where he was coming from by saying that, but it stuck with me all of my life. And then a couple years, like when I was in college, I had met this person, and he had said that, you know, he was I think he referred to himself as a shaman. And we were on a walk and talking at this party. We had sort of walked off to talk, and he dubbed me Playful Grace. And I'm like, what is this? You know, why do people think I'm graceful? Or why do they associate grace with me? And so through the years, it's evolved for me. It's a definition of, I mean, yes, it can be the way you carry yourself, but for me, grace is the way you act. It's with kindness, respect, and compassion. And for me, it's a daily choice. So now I've gone from like, what the heck is this, to I live grace daily. And it shows up for me in the form of, how can I be more compassionate? Am I being kind? Am I respecting this person? Am I listening? So it's really been a journey for me. And so I am all about the grace. So.
Oh yes, I can see when we put this up, you were probably like, that's me, I'm in. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? I love that. Michael, what about you? When it came, I know you wanted to look things up.
Well, certainly there is this, you know, the dictionary definition of grace, because kind of what Danny alluded to is that, you know, moving with grace in the physical perspective. And even I put out a poll on LinkedIn to say, you know, which of these is the one that lands for you, because there are so many different ways to deal with it. And Suzanne and I we don't tend to talk about deeply religious things. And that seemed to be a lot of the definition that most people are holding for this. But for me, it's as much of more around what Danny was talking about, is that how you react to things, how you respond to things, how you're interacting with people. You can do it with grace, or you can do it with brashness. You can actually do it with grace, or you can actually do it with awkwardness. But sometimes you can even find grace in that too. It's almost this acceptance, this allowing of things to flow. So that's kind of where I come from around this particular term, and why I had to really kind of wrap my head around this to be ready to speak to it and really kind of bring those concepts forward.
Yeah.
What about you, Suzanne? What would you say your definition is?
You know, I kind of wanted to put my finger in the wind and see what everybody else thought, because I had strong feelings about what I felt grace was. And so I put a question out on Facebook to my friends, and I love the responses that I received. You know, sometimes you get, the universe sends you signs that you're in the right direction and connecting to the right people. And I wanted to share just a little bit of what I had. You know, somebody responded, it's the ability to forgive, accept, and have peace. Another person responded, forgiveness when you don't deserve it. That's grace. I've given it times and didn't receive it when I needed it the most. Somebody else responded, love, forgiveness, acceptance, freedom, hope, the keys to the kingdom and beyond. Somebody else said, Michelle Obama, when they go low, you go high. You know, another person said it's being blessed when you don't necessarily deserve it. Because God loves us so much and is forgiving, we get thrown a bone even when we haven't earned it. And for me, the concept comes from a place of gift. When you're given something that maybe you couldn't have even fathomed, that sometime in your life you received a windfall from somewhere that you didn't expect, that maybe you didn't deserve or didn't think you deserve. My personal opinion is that you always do, but some of us don't feel like we're worthy of something. Sometimes it comes in the form of an opportunity. Sometimes it comes in the form of forgiveness. Sometimes it comes in the form of a smile from someone you never expected, or somebody letting you in to some magical corner of their lives. I think it takes all kinds of shape and form, but the question is, are we open to receiving? Are we open to seeing it? And will we recognize it when it comes our way? And so that's, you know, that's kind of the conversation starter here that we use today. And I do think it can come in different forms and recognized in different places, for sure. But the most important thing that we can come to terms with, I think, in all these definitions is a sense of vulnerability and a sense of openness. Of course, you have to be open to receive, and that requires a little bit of vulnerability. Grace, even in your actions. Grace, you know, they say like the gracious loser, or the person who can lose with grace, right? What is that? That's an acceptance, it's an openness, it's a humility at the same time. And the reason why I went here this month especially is because there's something I noticed in almost every successful person I followed. There is something happened to them in their life that really comes down to a moment of grace. You'll hear it so many times with influencers, success coaches, etc., where they had a near-death accident they weren't expected to survive, or something happened to them where they received a windfall, a break in moments of pressure that they thought they wouldn't survive. But grace somehow showed up, and somehow they recognized grace in their life. So I'm thinking of, many of you might be familiar with somebody like Brandon Brochard. His accident, his brain trauma that he wasn't really expected to recover from. One of our speakers from last year, Tony Watley, you know, he was kind of living a normal life until he was in a potentially fatal car accident that he survived. And he thought, wow, I'm here for a reason. Something kept me around when I didn't necessarily deserve it or even ask for it. So why am I here? And so I found that there's many moments of grace that are, if you look behind the stories of so many successful leaders, that's what I'm finding. Michael, what are your thoughts on how it's impacted you?
So there's several examples I can think of from my life where it's actually shown up. Some were simpler and some were a lot more heartfelt. So as an example, I was working at a company the company was going bankrupt. They actually went out of business. And we had a team that our entire team put all of our applications and resumes in to work at Google. And I was the sole person out of that team of 5 who got through and actually started working for them. I felt like I was the least qualified of the 5 people that applied. And it was an amazing experience to be there. And even, once getting there, kind of what a lot of people have talked about is that, receiving this level of grace and not feeling like you deserve it.
Mhm.
It was very much kind of part of that. But there's bigger moments too since then. And all of them tend to chain from one to the next. And this idea of allowing, I think, is some of the biggest struggle for me is, knowing what's possible. So there's certainly a huge event for me in my past where I wasn't listening, I wasn't allowing, I was forcing, I was being run on autopilot and allowing my shadow, my addictions to actually overrun my life. And it led me to dark places. It led me to doing stupid things. And it's almost like I shut myself off from all of that. It was all about the do. And in doing so, it put me in a place where, as privileged as I felt, I then took on parts of myself that I don't like, that I actually regret and feel shame about. And in going to those dark places and getting the stigma attached that comes with it, it was an awakening for me going to that dark place. And my addictions weren't necessarily the same as what most people would actually list that they would go to AA or NA for. For me, it was about connection with people at whatever cost. And that cost, it was a lot higher than I really wanted to pay now that I look back at it.
Mhm.
So, but where I've seen the grace come in is that with this stigma attached to what I've done in my past, there's also this how I have been received by people that have accepted me for who I am and who I show up as now.
Mhm.
And this kind of the lack of judgment. And I certainly have had a lot of judgment around this as well, where people have turned me away, and like my whole life turned upside down. Like everyone disappeared in my life except for a few core people in my family, and I had to rebuild after that. And in the rebuilding is where I found that grace,
Yeah.
as a contrast to where it wasn't.
Mm.
So, and even in some of those situations where it felt like everything was all working well, there was still this hanging over my head. So I've had to blow up my life a couple of times for various different reasons in order to really discover who I am. And that's where I'm at now, is kind of this unfolding of, okay, so irregardless of who that person thinks I need to be, or that if I am like this, I need to act like that. If it's family or friends or society or community, it's then how can I gracefully flow into who at the core I know I am?
Mhm.
That's where it's actually relevant to me, regardless of the restrictions, regardless of the things I can't do at this point
Mhm.
because of bad choices.
There's so many elements of grace in that, guys. Did you catch that? It's not just it came in the form of acceptance and lack of judgment from people. It also, though, came in him figuring out and having the grace to accept where he is and build from there. So we've got external manifestation, internal manifestation of how that impacts us. And I don't want to let Trisha's comment, fly by us. She said, there's so many associations to earn and deserve. But I think allowing that association to dissolve is part of grace. And Trish, you are in the right place, because everything Michael and I do is to annihilate the boundaries that keep us from our potential and keep us from being great. So thank you for that. And you are totally right. Like, what if it wasn't a question of allowing or deserving, but simply a question of being what we are?
Yeah, if you don't mind me continuing that a little bit about that, because I started typing and I'm like, no, I can't keep typing because I'm only half listening. But it's really interesting to me hearing the conversation start already, because historically I've always considered grace with respect to others, treating others with grace, responding gracefully to others. And so the interesting part is that both of you started with the internal first, treating myself gracefully and responding to my own head with grace, and then extending to others. So it's really, I mean, there's so many layers. It's so many layers to this. But yeah, so just
absolutely. Thank you.
Pennies.
Absolutely. And you will find that's how we roll here. We believe in ownership. We believe in accountability and really showing up based on who we've become, who we're becoming. And, we want you to embrace the statements, I am. This is who I am. So thank you for that. And I know for me as well, I have countless examples of grace showing up in my life. I feel grace every time I see one of your faces, that you chose to spend an hour with us. I'm grateful for that. When I worked for the United States Department of Justice, I was working to address discrimination, conflict, racial tension, emotional stuff, where communities would show up and put their emotional trust in my hands. I will never, ever forget the grace that all of those communities offered me. When they when I show up as a little white girl in the middle of an all Black community, and they see past the color of my skin, and they see I'm here to heal and let powerful change begin. So that's grace for me. Grace for me, and for those of you who've been with us a minute, you probably heard me talk about my health. I have a rare and potentially fatal blood disease that affects many aspects of my health and my body. Grace is also me waking up from a coma and looking at the team of doctors around me. And one of them said, thank God you're here. You thank God you're here, because we had done everything we can. So I never forget how grateful I am to be here. I have a cheat sheet, right? I've got a built-in reminder because I have health issues. So that's my cheat sheet. It might be harder for you guys, right? That's why we have these practices of gratitude as well, to get us tap into a state of grace all the time. I believe that's when we start living greatly. And I think grace is a major part of it that nobody's talking about, because it hits, you'll hear so many people talk about vulnerability, almost like it's a trendy topic, but grace hits a spot that very few are willing to go at. And that's why we wanted to bring it up, because we think there's powerful stuff here. So, Michael shared examples, and we also wanted to talk about how grace fuels leadership. And can you guys think of a way that it fuels leadership in your life or could do that? I talked about one, so I kind of gave it away, gratitude, right? It's the foundation of gratitude. Michael, did you want to talk about that?
So I did, and I would say that I've didn't realize I was a leader until just the last 4 or 5 years. And even though I was in positions where that has come up, but gratitude is certainly one piece. But I subscribe to the model that John Maxwell talks about as far as service leadership, is being of service to your community as their leader, not the person who lords over them and tells them what to do. So to me, there's a lot more grace whenever you have a leader who's listening to the people that they're leading, so that then he knows what they are striving to do, and is a very different than the authoritarian style of, you will do this because I said so. And to me, that is that level of grace, of being connected and seeing the community as a whole, rather than just what the executive, the stockholders want this, so let's actually drill forward with that with all of our might. Well, if you burn out your people in the process, which Danny's really connected with, if you burn out your people in the process, they don't stick around. There is no longer any level of loyalty, because then are you just a piece in a machine? So I've worked at really large companies, I've worked at really small companies, and I've always felt I worked better in a small company because there was a personal connection between me and the people that I'm working with. And it's not just a number, not just a widget in the machine. So to me, leadership really starts at that small team level. Yes, you can actually have tiers above that with leaders who are really connecting with that, but it's the leaders who I'm willing to follow are those who have actually shown that they can move through that with grace. They can't interact with their people from, yes, sometimes you need to just get stuff done. But before you can really pull that out of your team, you have to have invested time in them to know that you care about not just what happens inside the walls of the business, but also what's going on at home, what's going on with them personally, where their growth is. And that's one reason why, for me, one of the certifications I've gotten is the Lifebook process, and being able to bring that to companies so that they can invest in their people, so that they know where they're going. It's another way to say, I honor your path, and I want to ensure that you have the tools that you need to get there. It's a completely different way of approaching, rather than let me extract everything that you have out of you and then throw you away whenever I'm done with you. So there's this sense of, let's invest in our people, let's invest in our friends, let's invest in our families, so that then we can all be better people to the world.
I think that's powerful, and that goes to culture, that goes to values, and taking it back to the personal level, because it all starts at the personal level. I think you're gonna find, you hear every coach in the planet talk about find your why. Find your why. Well, if you dig underneath that why that you think is your why, my guess is there's probably a moment of grace in your lives. Maybe it's because someone somewhere along the way believed in you. Someone somewhere along the way took a chance on you. Someone along the way gave you an opportunity and allowed you to become something more than you ever thought you'd be. And so I think, when we're talking about the ways that grace fuels leaders, I think it's the deepest why that they'll ever have. I think there's a moment of grace there. And when you have that, because it's at that core deep level, that becomes a part of your identity. It embeds itself so deeply that I am really sure that all of you here who can see my face know that grace is part of who I am. It's become a part of me. And that spirit, that element underwrites my personal and professional integrity. I have no doubt about it that that is a core part of our identity. Michael talked about what it means to be a gracious leader as well. And I believe that grace is also the foundation of generativity and the creativity, the creation that we all engage in building our lives. It comes out of this because I had that moment where I could, or because somebody gifted me this opportunity, because they all forgave me when I'm not sure that I deserved it, or because I'm still here when I had a 3% chance of living. We are sure as hell not going to waste our time here, are we? I think there's so many powerful ways that grace shows up in our lives. And I think when we're not feeling it, when we're feeling ungrateful, when we're in the middle of a bunch of totally crappy things in our lives, it's definitely going to be hard to access it. So, Michael, how do you think people can do that?
So I think that we've kind of hit on one of those main things that really is this space to come from, is being grateful for what you have laid right in front of you. Be grateful that you have survived everything that has tried to kill you up to this point. Because this world, yes, overall, it's looking to support us, but with diseases, with challenges, with world conflict, with everything that's going on, it's that for me, it's a practice. And we talked about this last year as one of our subjects too, is start from that place of gratitude of thank you for the opportunity to learn in this. Thank you for giving me another chance to learn this lesson, even though I didn't hear it the last 5 times you tried to teach it to me. And in that is actually where that we can get towards that space of grace. It's also a matter of kind of that both that internal and that external space as well. Is I'm learning to choose to surround myself with people who are grateful that I'm showing up, rather than all about critiquing and judging me, because that community certainly helps boost me up. And I feel like as an example of people around me that are gracious, I can then model more of that, versus people who are not going to come from that place of grace or gratitude or appreciation. That's not going to help me get to the next level of where I want to go in my life. It's not going to help me be able to be further service to others, be able to take it to the next step.
I want to point out this thing that Michael just said that he didn't, it was almost in passing, but did you get that he was talking about your environment too? Yes to gratitude, but then yes, get yourself in a place. So how important do you think environment is, Michael, when it comes to being able to tap into grace?
So I think that having a danger room, in essence, a place where you practice this, is really important. That's my nerd showing a little bit, is this where you're practicing grace and gratitude here, so that you can take it out into the places where it may not be as well received, is really important. That's why having those communities where you can. For me, I'm involved with Mind Valley, I'm involved with Lifebook, I'm involved with a men's team, and each of those environments is a place where I practice gratitude, grace, appreciation, feedback, accountability, all those things. And then I'm well prepared and provisioned, so I can then share that grace, as they call it, grace under fire, is whenever, and if I haven't practiced here in a meditative space, in sharing communities, then it's gonna be far more challenging for me to do it out there. Because I don't think that for most people, myself included, that grace is not something that comes naturally. It's something that I've had to hone as a skill. And I do think that grace is a skill, and building up that self-confidence and that self-awareness, and being able to say no to someone and have it be gracious at the same time is thank you, but no thank you. There's a way to approach that. No matter how hard they press, is that's not my goal. That's not my mission. That's not my vision right now. Being able to do that is because I practiced it here. I practiced it in private. I practice it in my communities that I know support me.
And guys, Michael's known for tools. He's like the tool guy, right? So he's dropping them left and right if you're catching them. Because while he was talking about gratitude, he talked about environment and having a safe place to do it. Then while he's talking about having a safe place to do it, he drops meditation. Did you catch that? So he's dropping these tools left and right. And yeah, they're tools that everybody talks about, but there's a reason why. So
Absolutely. And for me, kind of one of my key goals in life is to have people live more intentionally. And that is, in order to do that, it's that self-awareness that comes from letting some of that other crap go, letting that self-judgment go. So if whenever I'm present here and not stuck in people pleasing and not stuck in shame from the past and really kind of present here, I feel I can be far more gracious whenever I'm living intentionally. I'm going this way, irregardless of if there's anybody going with me. I'm heading this way. I'm going out to the forest. If you want to join, please do. But this is where I'm going. There's a level of grace in that as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are people that you leave behind. And there's some grace in that as well. Suzanne and I, when we were talking earlier this week, is the martial art Aikido is about the movement of energies, using someone else's energy against them or to guide them out of your path. And there is, if you watch many of the martial arts, to me, there's a huge amount of that physical grace there, but that's not really intended as the primary result of doing martial arts. It is actually the psychological, the energetic grace that comes with it. The discipline, the calm, the being present and being able to respond instead of reflex to it.
There's your grace under fire, guys. But Michael, you did it again. So we got to go there. Guys, this is important. This is important. This is important. He also talked about there being grace and letting people go out of your life. That's a big one. Because when we're talking about environment and that safe, protected space, you also need to make sure that the people in your lives can honor at least your journey. It's okay if they're not on the same one. But sometimes it's grace to escort people out of your life. That's a hard one. Michael, I feel like I could just let you keep talking and then you're going to keep dropping these gems along the way. Guys, he's like leaving like powerful breadcrumbs to the trail to grace.
And as you mentioned before, is we've all heard these things before. And it's all the things that we know we should be doing. I don't like to shit on people. Though it is remembering that these tools are available and reminding us, in most of the meditations that I hear, many times they start with, come back to the breath. Those simple things of get present in your body now with the one thing that you can control if you need to, but you can also allow it to do its thing. It's such a powerful, simple tool that it helps me certainly get to that space of allowing when I need to. And Trish, did you have something you wanted to share?
Sure, if I may. I think that one of those challenges when you're letting people go is, obviously depending on how close they are in your circle and, length of time, it's that balance of the grace and compassion to understand this person and allow them to be versus the grace I'm going to allow myself to let them slide away. You know, I think a lot of, I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself, you know, it's very hard for me to, you know, with my either turn the other cheek background that I grew up with, and taking more investment in myself. You know, it's hard to drop some of the old habits and figure out, all right, well, is this for me? Is this for them? You know, that's letting the people slide away is honestly the best thing you can do in many relationships, especially if you can't bang your head against you can't bang your head against them to your own detriment. You know, that's really.
Yeah, and good for you though, because you have the right tools. Like you're number one, you're stopping, you're having a pattern interrupt, that you're stopping and you're actually contemplating, and you ask two questions: is it for him or is it for me?
Mhm.
And that is also extremely useful and helpful. And then I would probably suggest a third question, or you know, this is a third question I found helpful, is if we continue, at what cost will it be?
Right. Mhm.
And I think that's where sometimes the rubber meets the road. And you have to, and also, you know, people have their own journey. We may, our attachment may be because of our issues, but maybe there's something planned for their life that we don't even know. So it's important that we don't assume that. But yeah, attachments and our environment, that is all part of creating that space where you can grow and tap into grace as well. So we had talked about, Michael, you and I talked about how to activate grace in your life.
Right. So, and we've touched on that in a couple of ways already today.
Yeah.
For me, it's really about the awareness of this. It's that seeing where it's possible. And in many cases, it's slowing down tends to be far more graceful. You know, what I was thinking is I was in massage school for a while, and we learned one of the massage techniques. Number one, blindfolded. Number two, with no props. And it was like a kata. It was like when you're doing martial arts. And when you watch this being performed on someone, it is not a fast movement. And in that slowness is where I was able to see the physical part of the grace. But once again, it's to entrain the energy as well into that same level of awareness of where are you in space? Where are you in emotion? Where are you in energy? To bring that back in. And that to me, once again, is that where we activate is starting with awareness. And as Trish asked, when this hits me, is this my issue or is it their issue that's triggering me? If I'm reacting, it's mine. if I'm getting there. But then it's that awareness of where I am. And then it's that next step is, what is my mission, my purpose, my why, my goal in life? What is this bigger thing that I'm looking to create in the world? And am I still on my path for that? And sometimes, and it almost always requires me to slow down and check around me. Okay, where the heck am I? I just did that. Was that the core of who I am? Is that how I want to be perceived by me, let alone by other people? And to me, it really kind of goes to that. Let's slow down. It's like something that we talked about yesterday in another call that I was on. It's the asking somebody, how are you? And being willing and to take the time to listen to what their answer is. Rather than, hi, how are you? Fine, keep going. There's no grace in that. So.
Yes, I agree. And that's like one of my personal pet peeves, that I am, as a feisty redhead, I won't even answer the question if I know they're not interested. So I'll respond with something completely different. Like, would you like some ice cream? So, but I totally, yes, I love that. And I think also the most important thing, Michael, that you just brought up is energy. And guys, I know you know this, like you, that's why you're here, is all of this also ties into our level of vibration and our energy. And there is no doubt that grace is up there with love and the highest vibration. I know you can feel it. I know you felt it in your lives. And when you get good at this, because we're not really telling you to go find a rock and sit on for 10 hours until you find a state of grace. This can happen in seconds when you hone the practice. And I'm very, I can't say I can do it in seconds, but within a minute, I can get there. And I'm working on it to activate it more frequently and make it more accessible to me. But I can get there within a minute. And I know you guys can too. So it can happen instantaneously as quick as you want it to. So it's one thing for us to have it, but then if we keep it to ourselves, energy doesn't keep to itself, does it? It has to go somewhere. So what does it mean to share grace with others? And I'd love for us, Michael, I want to know what it means to you, but also guys, we want to open this up. This is your time. And we'd want to hear from you. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers too, if you have other things you want to talk about.
So I think a lot of this really is, finding that state of grace first in here. It's a matter of, having that cup runneth over so I can share with others. And it's that practice in private of, okay, am I showing grace to myself? Am I actually allowing me to be me? And there's a practice that Lisa Nichols talks about of, I am grateful for, I am proud of myself, and I commit to myself, as something that you do as mirror work, where this is literally a one-on-one thing, or maybe it's one to the other thing, but and coming to that place of grace in that is a way then when I'm sharing appreciation towards myself, it's not to pat myself on the back, it's to get to that place of I am enough. So then I can remember whenever I see someone else do something that I appreciate, I can share with them. I can actually say, and not to say, hey, thanks, but I appreciate you for something specific. So the person sees that you're listening. This isn't one of those things we can put into marketing automation. We can just say, hey, thank you all for such and such. It's like, thank you for showing up in the way that you do, because that impacts me in this way. And that can be something relatively simple as, thank you for smiling when I'm checking out and buying my groceries. Thank you for showing up to work and actually doing this with a smile. That's to me where it starts, is on the simple things. It doesn't need to be something that's grandiose with fireworks and presents. It's really acknowledging that other being across the room, across the world. I was talking with a couple last night. My wife and I were, and it's like, I'm talking with one person in Brazil. I'm working with some people in Europe, and I'm also, on calls with people in the Middle East and in the Far East. And it's like, we can share this gratitude all across the world. And when we interconnect all that stuff, I think it is that ripple effect that you mentioned earlier, Suzanne, of being graceful in our conversations, in our arguments, our dissension, in our discussions. I think that that's something that we need more of.
All right, guys, this is your time. Oh, how can you share grace? What's a way you can share grace? And do any of you feel like you've never experienced it before? It's open. This is your time.
All right, so I'll step in here. My husband about 4 years ago got really, really sick and was diagnosed with it's poem syndrome. And the journey of this, and you know, when you get diagnosed with something that's rare and that has all of these, you know, I told my kids in the beginning, do not look up what this syndrome means, or what the limits are. Just don't do it. And the journey for us has been filled with grace, because we pretty much touched on everything you guys have talked about. We had a situation with some people in our lives who were going through their own thing and their own, and instead of, they wanted us to side with them, and they were so caught up in their own that we extended grace, even though we were going through our own serious thing. We extended grace to them because they were going through their own issues, and their reactions, their responses were from a state of pain. So we actually, I mean, it was very painful, but we were able to extend grace to them because we knew they were hurting. We knew that they didn't mean some of the stuff they were saying to us. And we could have just been like, well, we have our problem and you have your problem. And it could have gotten really bad. But instead, I was able to just extend grace to them and be like, okay, you're in your space. And when you are finished with this, then maybe we can connect and come back to each other. But until then, I'm going to give you grace to deal with your pain, but I'm going to set boundaries because we're dealing with our own issues and pain. And, you know, we've been able to because this happened like right when we got the diagnosis. It was pretty messy. And then years later, I'm able to reconnect on a different level. There's many more boundaries, but I'm able to come from an even bigger place of love and a bigger place, of compassion, space of compassion, because I know their journey, and I think that's the key with grace, is that grace lets you understand. If you extended grace to another is knowing that it's like that story of the father gets on the train and the kids are going crazy and everybody's like, oh, well, he just controlled his kids. And then you find out that the kids, and he's not responding because he just found out his wife died, and they're all trying to process this, and it shifts the whole state of everybody on the, they start entertaining the kids. There's a whole, and I think living in a state of grace is recognizing that everybody has their own way of being. Everybody's dealing with their own story. Everybody's living their own life, and you don't always know what that is. But if you can just extend the grace that, okay, they're dealing with their own thing. I may not know what it is. I may never know what it is, but if I can extend the grace that maybe they're not acting for the reason I think they are, maybe there's a deeper level to it. I think that's that.
And you spoke on two. Guys, that was two levels of grace. One was suspending judgment, which is really important because everyone has their journey. And the other one was grace as boundaries. Ooh, guys, that's powerful. We don't really think of grace as boundaries, but it is, because it allows them to continue whatever path they're on, and it allows us to continue without interference to our journey. So I think that's a great example, and thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yes.
So I was just thinking about that a bit, because didn't feel like I had so many big events happening where I felt like, well, now it's really difficult to stay in my way of being. But then I thought about, well, that's exactly what I'm also to a certain extent preparing for, with just the daily habits I'm doing right now, like these small actions that just reinforce my identity, which will therefore then empower me to be graceful with whatever will be facing in life, which will be more ups and downs, I guess. Yeah, exactly. So I really thought about, well, all my research into habits is really coming in so helpful in anything I'm learning, because then I can just see, well, okay, what would be the master habit for being more graceful in my life, and then implementing that. And then I don't have to worry about it anymore, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. You're like in boot camp for all of this.
Yeah.
I love that. But also, you know what, Aaron? I'm going to put you on the spot. For me, I feel grace from you because you are so open to growth. And that openness is a grace. And I'm grateful you're here every time because I can't, like, oh my gosh, the people in your life are going to be so blessed and lucky. So for me, you are a total example, and your openness is grace. So definitely, I love that. And yeah, oh my gosh, isn't life boot camp enough, guys? Like, oh, believe it or not, Aaron, all the ups and downs are boot camp. So what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I'm little, but I'm powerful. So yeah, I love that. Anyone else? You know, what can you do now moving forward? What are your thoughts about what to do with this subject?
So for me, I love the thought of like letting people go with grace, because not everybody in my life is going to feed into a positive growth. And to be able to love somebody from afar and let them live their life, but not have to interact with them or take their judgment or negativity or whatever it is personally, or, you know, let it affect me. I was with a friend recently who is a recovering alcoholic, and we were talking about spending time with family. And she said, I can only handle them for a couple of hours because they really love their wine. And unfortunately, I really love the wine too. But in order for me to have a healthy life going forward, I need to not.
Yes.
So for her to be able, like, for her to be able to go and spend that time with them, even if it's just a little bit, you know, and then walk away and let them do their thing, because you're not going to change them. You
Right.
can only work on you and hope that they see the benefits that you've experienced and follow suit.
Yes, that's a major, major score for Grace's boundaries. I love that. And it's not always easy. It's family sometimes, right? Or friends that we love dearly, but they're not heading our direction in life, or they have habits and behaviors. And we're not saying cut people out, but we're saying live with grace and figure out what that means for that relationship and what you need, for sure. I have it in my own family. You know, I love my father so much. We talk to each other every day. However, you know, if he were not related to me, I'm not sure how attached we would be. And you know, I've let him know that several times. So
I want to bring up something else around that kind of letting people go. It's one of the things that on the men's team I learned was one of the biggest benefits of it is when someone completes successfully, as they talk about it. When someone doesn't say, screw this, I'm out of here, and they leave. It's when you get acknowledged on your way out of all that you've brought to that environment. And it's that exit interview. It's that ability to learn from what progressed while you were there. And I think that's one of the things that also kind of comes from that place of grace. This isn't an opportunity to tear you down and actually tell you that you suck. It's an opportunity to say, thank you for all that you've brought. This is the impact that you've made on my life. And then with grace, please go out and be fruitful. Do whatever is going to be next for you. And so many people actually miss out on that. You know, if it's actually from a job that they are quitting, or they ghost a partner that they've actually been seeing for a little while, or they stop showing up for their kids, whatever that is, that there's this opportunity that if, yes, there's times that you need to step away, but there's a way to do that gracefully as well. And I think that we need to ensure that there's more of that rather than all being in this space of anger and frustration that's actually expressed. So.
And beware though, guys, because when you exit with grace, sometimes they get attracted to you more. Right? Because they're like, oh, that's what I want. And then suddenly you become even more of an attractor. So I have that situation with somebody. I've tried to let them go 20 times. And every 6 months, you know, thinking of you. Oh my goodness. So I gracefully let them go again. So, you know, it's okay, but that's a beautiful thing to be an attractor. And if you're an attractor because you're full of grace, that's powerful, guys. That's a high level vibration that's just going to extend you exponentially. So I can't think of a better way to be than that. Do we have any other thoughts or anything you'd like to share? We always open this up at the end for you, for your time, and we're open. Michael, you as well.
I think I'm good.
All right.
Would kind of like to wrap up and also kind of bring to you is we do have a lineup for the rest of this year to talk about subjects like this. We do this once a month. So we have an opportunity to have this as a conversation. So our next event is actually on February 25th, where we're talking about beliefs. How do you elevate your beliefs? And those in the Lifebook community get this idea of what is that premise? What is that core belief that the rest of your beliefs are built on? We're going to be, you know, bringing in 1 or 2 speakers to actually talk about that. So we always do these on a Saturday at 11 a.m. We do have a schedule laid out for the rest of the year too. We're talking about things like identity and faith and courage, accountability, grit, and recovery. And each of these things, this isn't just us throwing words out there and playing alphabet soup. These are things that we want to work on. So we're going to start working on it and bring our work in progress out to you.
We're all works in progress, for sure.
So depending on the platform that you connected with us on, please look for the next Elevation Mindset Summit that'll be coming. We'll be probably posting in the next week or so on that coming out on February 25th.
So I just realized looking at my calendar, Michael, that on February 25th, I'm going to be with 14 of my closest female relatives for a birthday weekend. And this would be interesting to have this, you know, sit at the table with this conversation. Maybe somebody can get something from it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, we look forward to seeing you if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we are so grateful you showed up on a Saturday. We're going to send you off into the universe to do amazing things and to vibrate exponentially. And we want to see you again next month. And stay tuned. If you haven't joined our Elevation Mindset LinkedIn group, please do. So you see our event post and information there. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Enjoy the weather wherever you are. And we look forward to seeing you next month.